Battle Mage is the mage resistance class with really high mobility, lots of summons, and extremely useful bossing capabilities, both for survivability and extra damage. They're good for every situation, whether you're in a party or playing solo, but especially in a boss party, where they have multiple options for support through their various auras, providing some defense with their shield, or upping everyone's damage a ton throughout the entire fight. Though, they aren't limited to only being useful in parties, as their grinding and solo bossing capabilities are all there. So let me get right into explaining all those skills. I'm gonna briefly mention the resistance beginner skills here, solely for potion mastery, which lets you recover more health and mana from all potions used. And now let's get into first job. Here we have one passive for magic attack, defense, and crit rate, a basic mobbing skill that can be used in the air and attacks 3 times, and this teleport. Just like almost every other teleport in the game, you can teleport in any cardinal direction you choose. It has an up jump, you can use it in the air to snap to what? Huh? Yeah, this teleport is unique in that it has no bounds. You can just teleport in any direction midair, regardless if there's a platform nearby or not. Normally you only can use it once in the air, but if you up jump, you can use it twice in the air. Battle Mage's first job also gives 2 toggles, kind of. The first is Condemnation, which spawns these little friends that deal damage after defeating a certain number of enemies, or hitting a boss a certain number of times. 9-second cooldown in between activations. The second kind of toggle is the first of many auras you'll get. Hasty Aura gives a stage of attack speed to you and everyone in your party, and drains your mana every second you have it toggled on. It also gives extra range on your teleport at third job, but more on that later. Second job upgrades your Condemnation, gives a standard attack speed buff, an upgraded version of first job's mobbing skill with an extra line of attack, and Dark Chain, which yanks enemies closer towards you and can be linked with blow type skills, so quad blow. There's also a few fairly standard passives, stat increases and mastery and all that, but this one, Ordinary Conversion, gives you a bunch more health and the chance to regain mana with every attack you do. Pretty nice. Makes you a tanky mage not reliant on a magic guard-like skill. To match that passive, kind of, is Draining Aura. You and all nearby party members regain health by attacking enemies, and just like Hasty Aura, it drains your mana every second. Third job? Hello? Ah, there it is. The newly upgraded blow skill for this job rank, now with 5 hits instead of 4 or 3. There's also this attack that's kind of the opposite of Dark Chain, instead sending you forward and still chaining with blow type skills. You also get a few more passives, another Condemnation upgrade, and a couple new toggles for your teleport. First, Teleport Boost simply increases your teleport range both horizontally and vertically. Second, Dark Shock damages enemies you teleport through. More specifically, between your start and end locations of your teleport, enemies that survive the attack are debuffed with Dark Brand, which does even more damage when attacking those enemies. The Dark Brand attacks even do more damage to bosses, while the initial Shock teleport does more damage to normal enemies. Dark Shock is also the skill that increases your teleport range even further with Hasty Aura enabled. If you didn't want that on, you can right-click Hasty Aura to disable it. Some people tend to turn this off mainly because the Dark Shock's hitbox doesn't extend to the extra distance of it. Lastly, Blue Aura is the defensive aura. You and your whole party simply gain stat resistance and less damage taken, at the cost of mana drained per second. Fourth job gives Battle Mage purpose, something to make them stand out, something extraordinary, something extravagant, something called Maple Warrior and Hero's Will. Oh, I guess the last of your blow skills, Finishing Blow, is pretty cool too. This is your main attacking skill for everything. It hits up to 6 times and gives some IED and crit rate, but only on this attack. Also at 4th job, Battle Mage gets Battle Rage. It's a toggle that's more centric towards bossing, reducing max enemies hit with most of your attacks by 1/3. Not all summons though, and attacks won't go lower than 2 enemies hit max. In return, you gain some pretty nice stats for damage, crit damage, and a boost for crit rate. There's also some more passives as well as another Condemnation upgrade, Party Shield, which reduces damage taken for you and your entire party while in it, 3-minute cooldown, and 2 auras. Dark Aura gives your whole party extra damage, and Weakening Aura reduces nearby enemy defense. Once it activates on enemies, that debuff lasts for a whole minute, even if you swap to another aura. Dark Genesis is your last skill at 4th. It gives a passive that not only increases the damage on a bunch of your non-blow attacks, but also gives you a chance to strike lightning onto one enemy with every attack you do. The active part of it just attacks a bunch of enemies on screen in a rectangle around you, and yes, it does have a cooldown of about 30 seconds. See? The skill doesn't mention it at all, but it does have a cooldown in between active uses. Moving on to hyper skills, Battle Mage's first is Sweeping Staff. It simply swings and smacks a ginormous staff down right in front of you, hitting twice. 13-second cooldown. For Liberty is the resistance equivalent of Epic Adventure, 10% damage for you and all other resistance classes in your party, 1 minute uptime, 2-minute cooldown. Your third and final hyper skill, Master of Death, is a 30-second buff that gives an extra line of damage with your blow skills and increases the damage of Condemnation, as well as reduces the cooldown in between Condemnation attacks whenever you use a Dark Attribute attack besides Condemnation. The Battle Mage Discord and a Battle Mage I personally know both say all of your attacks are Dark Attribute, 3-minute cooldown. Hyper passives have a lot of useful options, though the ones you'll for sure want to keep around are Dark Aura Boss Rush and Weakening Aura Elemental Decrease. Boss Rush because a little extra boss damage for your whole party is nice to have, and Elemental Decrease on its own is useful for increasing damage dealt, but it also increases final damage taken from enemies affected by the aura. Since bossing is like one of the main appeals of Maple nowadays, keep these at all times. Your other passive choices would be Blue Aura Dispel Magic, mainly for parties for cleansing everyone of debuffs occasionally, like Seal, Curse, etc. Dark Genesis Cooldown Cutter, which nearly halves Dark Genesis's active side by half, which is pretty nice for grinding, or any of the party shield upgrades. Cooldown Cutter brings the cooldown down to about 2 minutes and 24 seconds. Persist makes the shield last 15 seconds longer, and Enhance further reduces damage dealt from enemy attacks. All of these are useful for party play. Swapping them around is a good idea too, depending on what bosses you're doing. The reinforced passives for Dark Genesis are okay too if you wanted to do more damage and don't plan on doing any serious bossing anytime soon, but once you start doing bosses, even solo, the others have way more use. Fifth Job opens the door of possibilities for you wide open. Well, the Altar of Possibilities. Altar of Annihilation is a skill that builds up 1 charge every 20 seconds, up to 4 charges. Click the skill to place one of these altars down. On its own, it lasts for 40 seconds, but otherwise does nothing. Once you place 2 down, a big evil purple ball shoots out from the first, going towards the second one and dealing damage to enemies in its path, as well as marking them with Dark Brand. You can have up to 4 out at a time, and each additional gate makes the ball travel in the order you placed them down in. Also, it stops at whichever altar was the last one placed down, and once it ends, it starts back up from the first altar. For every altar placed past 2, enemies take 2 more hits from the ball. Holding down and clicking the skill instantly places down 2 altars, but only for the first 2 summoned. One where you stand and the other in front of you, about half a screen away. Aura Scythe combines all your aura effects together for 30 seconds, up to 40 seconds at max level, as well as slightly increasing magic damage for yourself. This buff also beefs up your blow skills, making you deal 12 hits instead of 6 with Finishing Blow, increasing its crit rate and enemy defense ignored per hit. If you're in a party with another BAM, Battle Mage, while Aura Scythe is active, they can't use auras besides Aura Scythe or Weakening Aura. Once the skill ends, it just goes back to your aura you had on prior to using the skill, 90-second cooldown. Grim Harvest summons, as the skill itself says, Death itself to obliterate anything nearby it for 30 whole seconds, attacking once every 4 seconds. The duration increases 0.2 seconds for every enemy defeated, or 2 seconds for every boss hit. There's no limit for how long you can extend its duration either. The only limit is you gain up to 3 extra seconds per attack. So more than 15 enemies defeated with the same attack, or hitting 2 or more bosses with the same attack, both cap out at 3 seconds. While Master of Death is active, it halves the attack interval, but the skill duration doesn't increase. If you click the skill again while it's active, it resummons near you with a 10-second cooldown in between resummons, 90-second overall skill cooldown. Abyssal Lightning changes the entire background and shoots down a bunch of lightning everywhere whenever you activate either Dark Shock or any kind of attack caused by Dark Brand. Occasionally, these little spheres will appear that last for 15 seconds. Clicking the skill again while holding a direction will teleport you to the nearest one. This skill is also an iframe, making you invincible when you initially cast it, as well as when it ends. 40-second duration, 3-minute cooldown. Alright, Resistance Shared Nodes. Resistance Infantry is a placedown attack that summons a group of soldiers that attack enemies on both sides of them for 10 seconds, 25-second cooldown. Maple World Goddess's Blessing builds up 1 charge every 3 minutes, up to 2 charges from the moment you log in, and simply makes your Maple Warrior stronger and increases damage dealt for a minute. Shared Mage Nodes time. Ethereal Form places you in a stealthed state for 3 seconds, giving you super stance and protecting you from most attacks, reducing their damage while it's active, 3-minute cooldown. And finally, Mana Overload is a toggle that increases nearly all damage dealt by you at the cost of consuming more mana per attack. 1-minute cooldown from the moment you turn it on, but no duration. It just lasts forever. Now that all the skills have been explained, let's make Battle Mage easy. Starting off with all your auras and when to use them. For grinding, your 2 options would be Hasty Aura or Dark Aura, but optimally Hasty. Not only can you reach the cap with it on, plus one other attack speed boosting thing, like Decent Speed Infusion or Monster Part Green Potion, but it also increases the range of your teleport ever so slightly, which comes in handy for navigating maps quickly. Again, if you don't like it, you can disable it. Some BAMs don't like it. Dark Aura can be nice only if you're absolutely needing more damage for taking out mobs in one hit, and can't quite do so with Hasty. For bossing, every other aura is good. Start off with having Weakening Aura out for debuffing the boss, then once you see that debuff underneath them, you can swap to Dark Aura, and keep that on for about a minute until you need to recast Weakening Aura's debuff. You can also very easily maintain Weakening Aura's debuff by using Aura Scythe anytime it's off cooldown, which makes it last for about a minute by the time it ends. Which means, even at level 1, you'll have roughly 90 seconds of Weakening Aura, which matches the cooldown of Aura Scythe at level 1. The other auras are all situational. Draining Aura for healing when you can't use a potion because of the boss's global potion cooldown timer, and Blue Aura not only for its resistances and reduced damage taken, but also if you put a point into its Dispel hyper passive. All of this applies not just for party play, but also solo. Also, don't forget to recast these once you run out of mana, or just give your pet auto heal skills so you don't have to worry about it as much. Party Shield is a massively useful defensive skill, for both how long it lasts and how much damage it can reduce. While it doesn't protect against all one-shots, it stops quite a lot, and can help you and your whole party live through things you'd normally need an iframe for. Things like walking through Lotus's Part 1 spinning lasers, or Will's screen crack in Part 1, or his spiderweb he places down in Part 2. There's tons of examples. This list in the Battle Mage Discord's guide is strictly for what Party Shield outright ignores and negates entirely, but mostly everything else outside of this list reduces your health instead. Still helps out, but you're not always invincible inside the shield. For grinding, you'll want to cycle around all your 5th job skills, but most importantly your Grim Harvest and a couple altars, while you yourself are attacking around whatever section of the map those summons aren't placed in. Urda Fountain helps give extra map coverage too, but has issues lining up with BAM's other skill cooldowns, so it's not too useful. While your summons are taking care of one side, all you need to do is remember to spam Finishing Blow, Sweeping Staff whenever it comes off cooldown, and teleport around for extra range and Dark Shock damage. You could use Battle Burst too for extra horizontal mobility. If you use a teleport skill directly after Battle Burst, you can then teleport in any direction immediately after for extra mobility. Throw in a teleport before Battle Burst for even more distance. For bossing, it's similar, just requiring you to keep hammering away at the boss while they're debuffed with Weakening Aura, and spamming Finishing Blow and Sweeping Staff. Also Resistance Infantry if you have that available. Again, you should also have Aura Scythe up most of the time, which applies Weakening Aura throughout its duration. Just remember to reapply it in between boss phases. Keeping altars in between the boss maintains the Dark Brand debuff on them too, so remember to keep that up and active. Teleporting with Dark Shock on does this too, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're temporarily out of altar charges. Thankfully nowadays you don't need to keep spamming teleport on the boss for maximum DPS, just shock them once, and keep casting Finishing Blow until it goes away, which takes about 7 to 9 hits. This part is deserving of its own small section, and I've been requested by the Battle Mage Discord to clear the air on this. If you've seen older Battle Mage videos or guides in the past, you may have heard of a thing called Telecasting, which was the main method of maximizing DPS. It consisted of using teleport constantly in between all your main attacks for maximizing DPS through Dark Shock's damage. Keyword there being was. This is no longer the case, as the damage of Dark Shock has instead been reallocated to Dark Brand, which procs every 15 attacks. It used to be important a few years back, but has since died down to near uselessness, at least from the damage side of things. It's still partially useful for mobility, repositioning in a boss while still dealing some damage while moving. Otherwise, save your fingers, don't telecast. As with I believe every single other mage in the game that uses stabs or wands, you'll want to use a shield over a secondary, because shields can be star forced. More specifically, the best in slot shield you can get and will absolutely want is the Deimos Sage shield. You can craft it from these materials, after acquiring the recipe from either fighting normal Cygnus, or randomly dropping from these monsters. You'll also want a higher level of smithing to successfully craft it. Using a secondary is only fine early on when you're just starting out, or grinding up to 200-ish, but try to replace it with a shield once you're a higher level, like 210 to 220 and above. Link skills are the same as every other class. For grinding, prioritize anything that gives XP, which would be Evan, Mercedes, and Aran. Lara if you wanted more normal enemy damage, and then fill in the gaps with whatever else. More damage, maybe crit rate if you needed that, etc. Looking roughly close to this. For bossing, get everything that's good for dealing more damage. Lumi for IED, Demon Slayer and Lyn for boss damage, Demon Avenger and Kana for percent damage, Arc, Explorer Mages, that kind of stuff. A setup looking a little something like this. You might also want to max out your resistance link because you're playing a resistance class. Now there's reason for people to consider getting it since it doesn't eat up a link skill slot if you're playing a resistance class. For inner ability, the first line you'll want is boss damage, and the second and third lines would be either flat magic attack, abnormal status damage, or crit rate, whichever you need more. Crit rate isn't as important nowadays thanks to the newly released artifact system providing some, and also Battle Mage inherently giving 20% while it's active, so keep those in mind. And as usual for settles or grinding, the typical dropper Meso. Attack speed thankfully isn't necessary because Battle Mage reaches the cap very comfortably through just having a monster part green potion and decent speed infusion. Same with buff duration, cooldown reduction, and cooldown skip. None of their summons or buffs past 4th job benefit from these in any huge meaningful ways, so you can skip over all these. The only one that does benefit from any of these is buff duration for extending AB link. For Trinodes, let's start with your perfect bossing Trinode. Finishing Blow, Dart Shock, and Condemnation. Finishing Blow is your main attack for everything. Condemnation is a passive you'll have up all the time, and you'll be teleporting around very often anyways, so technically this is a Trinode good for both grinding and bossing. The secondary Trinode set, you'll want Sweeping Staff and Dark Genesis for the first two, and then you can choose whatever else you enjoy more for the third skill. Obviously, avoid any of the other blow skills that aren't finishing, so that leaves you with either Dark Chain or Battle Burst. There's not much difference beyond whichever you prefer to use more. The Battle Mage Discord's Big Bam Guide also mentions you could set up your last set of Trinodes to instead be 5 across 3 different Trinodes, if you absolutely wanted to boost both Chain and Burst, and have an extra slot left over. For Burst/BA, after making sure your toggles and buffs are up and ready to go, including Battle Rage, start by casting Weakening Aura until the boss is debuffed, then switch to Dark Aura. Now you can start buffing for real. Pop 4 Liberty, Maple World Goddess's Blessing, Will Skill and/or Solar Crest if you have those, place down all 4 Altars of Annihilation, in a pattern something like this, where the outer ones are 1 and 2 and the inner ones are 3 and 4, with 3 being closer to 1. Resistance Infantry, Grim Harvest, Abyssal Lightning, Aura Scythe, Master of Death, AB Link, Sweeping Staff, and then just keep spamming Final Blow, Resistance Infantry, and Sweeping Staff whenever they come off cooldown. I don't even really need to shorten this down beyond this. Pop all your toggles and buffs, Weakening Aura, swap to Dark Aura, pop all your buffs with cooldowns, summon attacks like Will Skill and 4 Altars, Resistance Infantry, Grim Harvest, Abyssal Lightning, Aura Scythe, Master of Death, AB Link, Sweeping Staff, Final Blow spam, adding in Resistance Infantry and Sweeping Staff anytime they're off cooldown. Battle Mage is a very summon-heavy class, so for most of their damage they don't have to remember much beyond debuffing, popping everything they got, and then get cozy. That's it. That's their burst. Battle Mage has always been a class I loved just for their auras and how situational they all can be. I've always known they were useful, especially since one usually tags along with me when I run some of my weekly bosses. Learning about all the functions of their various auras while making this guide made me appreciate them more, especially Weakening Aura's debuff. That one's mega nice. Thanks to the Battle Mage Discord for letting me lurk around and check their quick guide and their in-depth Google Doc guide, thoroughly explaining certain things in detail, like use cases for Party Shield or the fact you don't have to telecast constantly anymore. and also scaring me by spotting me when I joined the server. Thanks to the battle mage in my life with, no joke, 10 battle mage mules for correcting and clarifying things I missed, and thanks for watching. If there's a certain class you want me to go make a guide on next, suggest it in the comments. If you just like these videos and wanted to hear me go over more Maple classes in the future, and potentially other MapleStory centric content, consider subscribing to the channel. It still irks me that this past Maple Island event I was gearing my Aran and Shade, preparing to make guides for both, and then Korea went and overhauled them entirely, so now I gotta wait until those reworks make their way over to GMS. Thankfully, they weren't the only ones I was planning on making near future guides for. I got more ideas and classes I'm excited to dive into, unless y'all sway my opinions and want something else. I'll still be prepared for that though. That's all.